Hello, hello, everyone, and welcome to What Would Dorcy Do Friday. I'm Dorcy Pruder, the CEO and founder of the Conscious Co-Parenting Institute, where we focus on meeting the needs of divorcing parents wherever they are in the process. So I'm super excited that you're here. We have an interesting topic today. I'm going to be talking about the drama triangle and how to shift out of being in the drama triangle and into an empowered role. And so a lot of you probably have heard of the drama triangle. It's the role or the relationship where we have a victim, and the victim is generally always the victim, although people can play all three roles. So it's the victim role and the persecutor and the enabler or the rescuer. And so oftentimes in this family dynamic known as parental alienation, we're dealing with a drama triangle. And where does the drama triangle come from, right? Where is that created? It's created in our trauma from our own childhood. So we create narrative to wake us up when we become adults. And we're manifesting our life story, right? The experience that we're having so that we can wake up to our unconscious parts and shift them. This is where the drama triangle is born from in all of us. And all of us have played a role. All of us have been in the victim role. All of us have been in the rescuer role. And all of us have been in the persecutor role in many, many relationships in our life. And one of the things I think we all miss is when we're stuck in that space, it's usually that we're triggered into something and we want to either help somebody, by saving them ourselves. We want to be the victim and we love the victim mindset. It makes us feel good, right? It makes us feel, even though it feels bad, it makes us feel secure. It's what we know, right? It helps us stabilize our own story. And then the persecutor role, when we're triggered, right? We get triggered by our victim story, we get triggered by something, and then we act as the persecutor. And so I really want to dive a little bit deeper into these three roles, how they show up in your life, and what you can do about it. So the persecutor, when you show up in that role, is really the problem dominates you. You blame, you maybe attack, you move into the space of wanting to be the explainer, right? I need to show and teach. And then the victim, of course, is the, oh, woe is me. They feel powerless. They feel attacked. They're usually the one who creates the triangle, but not necessarily, okay? But oftentimes the victim is always the victim in the triangle. And the victim will shift one person from persecutor to rescuer and back and forth, oftentimes in this family dynamic. And the rescuer is, poor you, let me relieve your pain, fear of being needed or not being needed, so they want to fix everything. And oftentimes people get in that role because they want to fix themselves, right? They see something in the other person and they want to save themselves, the other person. And then the shift in that, or what I would do differently, is to shift the role. So whatever role you're in, you want to shift out, and that's how you end the trauma triangle that you're in with one or two other people. So the victim can shift into the creator role. And so Stephen Cartman is the one who created in the 60s the drama triangle, right? So he's the one who really labeled the triangle and created that space. And the shift from victim to creator is a really important role, because you are oftentimes in that role the one who gets to make the change, because oftentimes the victim is the one who creates the narrative, right? To wake up to their unconscious parts. And so when you want to shift from the victim role, you want to shift into the creator role. You own your power, right? As the chosen parent, you own your power to choose and respond, to focus on outcomes. I can do it. Okay. So taking responsibility is what happens in the creator role. Taking responsibility for triggering the person who's acting in the persecutor role. Taking responsibility for the person acting as the one who needs to save you. Okay. If you shift from the victim mindset, target, right, to the creator mindset, chosen, you can change the entire family dynamic. And I think it's really important for you to understand the victim triangle and how that plays out when you buy into that story or you create that narrative for yourself. If you're in one of the other roles, then you can shift from rescuer or savior to the coach's role. And I train coaches. I'm a coach myself, and I talk about coaching all the time. And one of the things I teach our coaches, and they have probably the greatest struggle with, and I think probably most coaches that act in that role, is shifting from rescue, fixing, telling, trying to do it for you, to a support role, right? A role of assistance to facilitate, provide clarity by asking questions. How will that help you? How will you do it? What can I do to support you? Versus here's how you do it. You need to do this. You need to do that. You're shifting from rescuer to coach when the questions really provoke thought, right, in the person that's acting in the role as victim. Okay. The other role is the persecutor role. Are you acting in that role? If you're the one blaming the other person, you're triggered, right? You're triggered by somebody else's behavior. And, when we're in this role, right, we can shift from the persecutor to the challenger. It calls forth learning and growing, right? It calls forth being the provider, and you can be the provoker of, the narrative, if you will, without blaming. Okay. In this role, you can also ask questions versus being in the persecution you're doing. And this role can also be acting as providing information in a way that's not blaming. So the role of challenger, the provocateur, if you will, can probably be one of the most challenging to get out of, because it's the role of justice, right? I want justice here. I want this to stop. I want them to stop doing this. You can see what's happening. In the provocateur role, it doesn't necessarily mean that the actions aren't happening, right? It doesn't necessarily mean that at all. It means you shift how you're laying it out, right? How you're moving through the role. Now, one of the things that I think people really have a challenge with is leaving the drama triangle or shifting the drama triangle to being empowered and reconnecting with who you are, what your dreams are and your desires are as a parent, your relationship, really looking at what that relationship looks like with your children, and really creating the shift to happen. And you move into the creator, challenger, or coach's role with greater awareness, and options become available to you when you shift how you're showing up. And the empowerment triangle is a role of reconnecting to who you authentically are. It's reconnecting to what it is you authentically want. It's taking action towards those outcomes, and it requires the shift in your mindset. And for most people, when the shift happens, you do automatically move into creator, challenger, or coach with much more awareness, and so many more options become available to you. So I wanted to bring this up because I recently had an experience that put me in the persecutor role, and quickly I was triggered in that role. And very often when we deal with narcissistic people or narcissistic pathology or borderline pathology or any of the cluster Bs, but it doesn't have to be that, they really will surround themselves with people who they view as weaker. And they'll also meet the needs of those people around them who feel too threatened to offer a challenge. And then the rescuing people will meet their needs for attention, and they'll look like the good guy to everyone else. And, that's how the narcissists really create the drama triangle. And you can easily fall into that because you're triggered in your own story in one of those those roles. And I had to remove myself from the triangle. And it's really interesting because it's a challenge to do that even for me. And I teach this stuff and we're all human. And so when we're stuck in the drama triangle, sometimes we can't see that we're in it until we take a step back and we allow ourselves to analyze our role in the triangle. And once you do that, you can shift how you show up and everything changes. And it's important to understand where you are in your relationships. And if you're showing up in a drama triangle, you can shift it at any time. And this family dynamic triggers this frequently in people. And we often get stuck in our triangle, especially when we're not experiencing the relationship we want to have with our children. And we want to be stuck in our victim story, and we want to create the persecutor and the rescuer. Oftentimes in this narrative in our work, right, the parent comes to us and they want to be the victim, and the persecutor is the other parent, and they want us to rescue them. And sometimes people get mad. Give me the answer. Why don't you just solve it for me? Why don't you just tell me what to do? And when we tell people what to do when they're stuck in the victim story, they're not actually going to do it, or they may do it, but if they don't resolve how they got there in the first place, their story, then they'll just move the rescuer over to the persecutor when it doesn't work. And so it's really, really important to look at your relationships, understand who you are, where are you in the triangles? You could be a different person in different triangles, and then create the opportunity for yourself to shift how you're showing up in those relationships. So that is What Would Dorcy Do Friday. I'm super glad that you are here with me today. I want you to know that I am pre-recording this today because I have a prior engagement that I cannot reschedule. And so this will be recorded today, but I did want to get the information to you so that you had something to think about and shift how you're showing up this weekend. So I want to thank you so much for participating today, and we'll see you next Friday.